Aki, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Oh yeah, of course. You guys are building something amazing and I'm here for it. Honestly, you're saving me. I can't close my eyes without seeing plot points and dialogue lines flashing through the darkness.
The story consulting business keeping you busy?
Yes, I love it. Seeing the look on writers' faces when we finally get their stories clicking to life is absolute magic to me. Hopefully I can help you guys do the same for your audience.
In that spirit, here's today's question from Stacy, a beginner writer writing her first romance novel. She asks, I want to write my first novel, a love story. I don't know where to start. Any help is appreciated. Thank you, Beacon Scribe. Any thoughts, Aki?
Love this question. It's one I get from practically every student and client of mine. I just want to preface my response by saying there are many ways to write our stories. I'm going to share in broad strokes what myself and dozens of writers have done and we know works consistently. You don't have to do this, but it works.
Yes, members of the writing community are quick to defend their respective hill when it comes to the writing process.
We're just a passionate bunch, which is beautiful. Okay, to answer Stacy's question. Stacy, I'd recommend starting with your audience. What stories do they think are the best stories in the romance genre? What do they think are the worst? If you figure that out, you now have a wealth of stories to draw from and create your own personal, exciting twist. For those who have a marketing team, this step alone will have them worship you.
Adding market research to the writing process is such a clever move.
It took me a while to realize, and I didn't do it alone, but that's a story for another time.
Yes, please continue.
Next, Stacy, I recommend finding out what you want to say about romance. Is it love is suffering? Is it love is a double-edged sword? Fill in the blank. Love is blank. Knowing this will help you create the spine of your story so you don't lose your way and have to rewrite excessively without focus. I've helped writers who have spent years rewriting their story because they couldn't figure out what they were trying to say.
This is theme, correct?
Yes, exactly. I prefer to call it the argument because that's what we're doing as writers. We're arguing a certain idea through dramatization for our story. An important step.
Agreed.
Next, tropes. Take those stories your audience like and dislike, Stacy, and see what tropes said stories have used. Now, these stories can be movies or books, etc. I recommend visiting tvtropes.com for a comprehensive list.
TV Tropes is a great resource for any writer.
Absolutely. But don't make the mistake of going down that rabbit hole for 8 hours.
8 hours?
Personal record, so far. Once you collect the most tropes in those stories, let's try to stay on track. Once you collect the most tropes in those stories, Stacy, create ways to subvert them for your story. This is where you get to play a little. Most writers find that a lot of ideas about their stories start bubbling up to the surface here. So keep those ideas in your back pocket because those are the tools you'll use to wow your audiences later.
This is really great, Aki. I can see how these steps build on one another in an organic way.
Right. We're not done yet. After tropes, decide your ending, Stacy. Not in detail, but in tone. Do you want it to be tragic? Do you want it to be happy? Or somewhere in between? Knowing the type of ending you're aiming for will help you design your plot points and your characters around it. I'd also consider, since this is a romance, Stacy, whether or not you want a happy ever after or happy for now. The former will likely mean your novel will be a standalone. The latter will likely mean you have more books in the works.
I can't tell you how many writers we've interacted with neglect this step, Aki.
Practically all of them in my experience. Which is fine, really. We all have our approaches, and they all work. I find that pantsers or discovery writers don't do outlines, they don't do structure. They operate on intuition, which is incredible because some of the best writers I've encountered and are friends with are discovery writers, and they blow me away constantly with how much they've internalized about story structure.
Really?
Oh yeah, I just finished reading and analyzing a short story that a dear friend of mine, shout out Jaco, is submitting into competition, and wow. Jake doesn't outline. He can, but he has such an innate understanding of story, likely because of so much reading and writing, that once he's in the zone, he can create some magic. It took me a minute to learn to appreciate our differences in approach, because I'm a structure guy. Yeah, it's amazing what discovery writers like Jake can do.
So far, we have 5 steps, I believe.
Yes, thank you for reeling me in. I tend to gas up the writing fan. Okay, next, Stacy, I recommend working on your characters. Start with your hero, or since you're writing a romance story, it's probably a heroine. Most romance readers are female.
This is something we learn through market research.
Very much so, yes. Over time, I learned that writers will take the first step I recommend about audiences and expand on it. For now, though, let's keep it nice and easy so we don't overwhelm writers like Stacy before they build some literary muscle.
Well said.
Stacy, flesh your heroine's character out.
Let me stop you for a second. Please explain why this is important.
It's important because all the other characters in your story, Stacy, will come from her, will come from your heroine. They'll provide different perspectives for her to interact and clash with. It's key. Once you do that, move down the list.
Love interest, antagonist, etc.
Exactly. And the last step in the process is outline. Now, if you're a pantser like my buddy Jake, pantser is such a funny term. These steps are probably enough for you to start writing. If you're a fellow plodder, then the outlining step is for you. If you've done the above properly, this step will be a lot easier. Just pick the structure you think will best suit this particular story and go from there. There are 1,000,001 structures out there.
Aki, you have a take on structure that I find really refreshing, and counter to most writers who pledge themselves to the current guru in vogue.
Oh yes, this is really important. Don't follow structures to the letter. If you follow a writing teacher because their values align with yours, great. If they're not trying to scam you or sell you something, they'll tell you what I'm telling you right now. Base your story structure on what said guru provides and adjust that guru structure to your story. Don't think that you have to force your story to fit this supposed one-size-fits-all and one and only story structure. So many of my writers get stuck and suffer so much frustration because of this rigidity.
Yes, same on our end. They think that there's only one way to write a story.
Because they don't know any better. They're still learning, and that's okay.
Exactly. Do you have any recommendations on which structure Stacy and other beginners should use?
For sure, the my structure.
Mary Robinette Kowal.
That's right. I understand you at Beacon Scribe recommend her take on the mice structure as well.
Yes, she's a favorite in our corner of the world.
Yeah, she's great. I also recommend listening to a podcast she co-hosts called the Writing Excuses.
We follow that podcast here too. One last question, Aki.
Shoot.
How long does this process usually take?
Great question. That will depend on the writer, in my experience. Some writers take a month or over a month. Fastest I've seen was a day. But that particular writer was really familiar and well practiced with the process. Plus, I think they've been mulling over the story for a while before starting. So they had many things already thought out. The average I've seen is about a week, maybe 10 days. Either way, don't feel like you need to finish within a set time frame. Move at your own pace, just don't let perfectionism stifle you. You haven't done this before, so cut yourself some slack and give yourself permission to make mistakes. With time, you'll be where you want to be.
When I started, I had no idea what I'm doing. And honestly, it still feels that way sometimes.
Aki, this has been so great. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, this was really fun. Let's do it again sometimes.
Where can people find more about you?
Oh, well, subscribe to this channel. Hopefully they'll have me on again.
That's the plan, Aki. Thank you for the plug.
I got you. And if people need help writing or have written a story and want me to take a look at it, they can email me at AkisFeedback@gmail.com. I generally read scripts. I don't do many novels, but I can discuss it with you if you'd like. I also help writers on a first come, first served basis. And please forgive me if I don't get back to you right away. I tend to give my undivided attention to each writer. So the minimum amount of time I spend with a writer and their story is around a week. That's typically how long it takes us to have them feeling really confident in their story so that they can submit it into competitions, shop it around, etc.
We'll have all those links in the description. Aki, thank you so much for visiting us.
I had a blast. Stay striving, Stacy. I want to see that romance novel published soon. Later, everyone. Thanks for having me.
There you have it, folks. Stacy, we hope you've gained some insights about the writing process. Keep telling your stories, your way.